Well, Kim, did you and Kyle do it? Connie asked, hopefully. Kim replied without enthusiasm, Yes, we did it. Come on, girlfriend. Spill all the juicy details. That was the worst sex I've ever had in my life. I want to kill you for talking me into it. What? I thought Kyle was supposed to be amazing in bed. Maybe according to him, the only sack he deserves is the burlap sack they put him in before they throw him in the river. Oh my God, that sounds awful. Tell me what happened. It was the last night of the conference. Kyle had been hitting on me the whole time. I finally decided to take your advice and do it. I think he almost peed his pants when I invited him into my room. He immediately started undressing. Before I knew it, we were in bed. After a few strokes, he fired his pencil. Kyle immediately started apologizing and blaming me for being so damn hot that he couldn't help himself. He promised he would perform better the second time around. He came around pretty quickly, and we had sex again. Well, the second time he went from a 1-0 on a 5-point scale to a 1-1. He lasted a little longer, but I never got anywhere near the feeling of growing bliss. To top it off, he started blustering. I hope your experience with me doesn't spoil you for your husband. I almost laughed in his face. My experience with him wouldn't spoil me even in regards to a 3-inch dildo. What are you going to do? First of all, I'm not listening to you about men anymore. Secondly, I'm still trying to decide whether or not I should tell Martin. Of course you're not going to tell him. I mean, you two were careful not to be seen, weren't you? No one else from the office was at the conference, so no one knows except you, me, and him. The problem is that I think I'd have a chance at forgiveness by confessing to Martin if I portrayed it as a one-time mistake that would never happen again. If I try to cover it up and he finds out later, I think he might get angry enough to divorce me. Even if he never finds out, I still have to live with the secret hanging over my head for the rest of my life. It's a tough decision. What are you gonna do? I'm going to wait a while and think about it. Maybe later my choice will become clearer. Connie was joking. Well, if you do tell him and he divorces you, can I fuck Marty immediately? No way, bitch. They both laughed. Kim was working at her desk when Kyle walked into her office like he owned the place. He locked the door behind him and looked at Kim with a smirk on his face. Hey, sweet cheeks, do you have time for a quickie? You mean for a quick kick in the balls? Yeah, I have time for that. Come on, Kim. Don't try to play hard to get right now. We both know you want another round of treatment from Dr. Kyle. You're a selfish, thick-headed asshole. I wouldn't touch your little tool again with anything but pliers, which I would squeeze as hard as I could. Oh, now I get it. Are you into BDSM? Anyway, I can go for it as long as you don't leave any bite marks or scars for my wife to see. You can go for that. You, asshole, see the door. That's where you can go. Kim, I'm noticing some hesitation in you wanting to be with me again. Do I need to remind you that I know what we did and how spreading that knowledge could cause you problems in your marriage? Oh, really? Do you know what my husband does for a living? I heard he's some retarded college professor. Yes, he does teach college during the week, but on the weekends, he teaches martial arts to the police and sheriff's department. He was an officer in the military. It won't take him more than 5 seconds to take you to the ground. Even the squirrels won't touch your nuts when he's done with you. Kyle looked less confident. Kim, do you really want to risk your marriage? How about one last time together? Sex with me is sweet, you know that. I doubt my marriage will be in danger when I explain how you got me drunk and raped me. My deepest desire was only to prevent the shame that would fall on my poor husband, who kept me from reporting the rape. Not only will he apologize for my behavior, but he will take his anger out on you. The question is, do you want this encounter to be the last thing you ever do on your feet? Kyle was almost stuttering. I think I caught you in a bad mood. I don't think it's the right time of the month for you. I'm going back to my office now. Let me know when you're ready for the rematch. Ciao, asshole. As soon as Kyle left her office, Kim screamed at herself. Stupid, 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 stupid. She called Connie to meet her after work. Kim, you look upset. Martin didn't find out anything, did he? No, not yet anyway. Kyle threatened to tell Marty if I didn't keep sleeping with him. Oh my God. Are you going to give up and do it with him again? Hell no. I threatened him back. Told him my husband teaches martial arts to the police. Both women laughed. I think my threat worked, but it makes me urgently decide whether or not to tell Martin. Kim, Have you ever heard about the stories on the site online? I have heard some comments about some of the stories on the site. Why do you ask? Well, they have stories categorized. In the cheating section, they have many stories about women who were given second chances by their husbands, especially in the first stories published. So, you should read those stories. Learn all the excuses, explanations, and promises these cheating women made to get forgiveness. Then you'll have a list of things to say to Martin when you tell him about your date with Kyle. That should greatly increase your chances of forgiveness. You've certainly been wrong about Kyle before, but what you just advised me makes sense. What did you say the website address was? Kim has read hundreds of RDLAT, reconciliation at any cost, stories on the site. If she came across a BTB, burn the bitch revenge story, she moved on. After a while, she compiled a list of potential excuses she could use against Martin. This gave her the courage to open up to him. One Friday night, Kim cooked Martin's favorite dish and served wine with it. After the meal was eaten, they took their wine glasses and went into the living room. Soon they were already cozying up on the couch. When Martin looked quite content and relaxed, Kim cautiously approached the subject. "Marty, I'm so happy to be married to you. I feel like I'm the luckiest woman in the world. You are so attentive, caring, patient, and forgiving. Sometimes I think I don't deserve you. Kim, you deserve me and every bit of my love and more. I swear I'm falling in love with you more and more every day." They kissed tenderly. "You know what made me fall even more in love with you a few months ago?" "No, what?" "It was the day I had a car accident and a dented car fender, and it was my fault. I was so sure you'd be mad at me. I was terribly worried about it. I even thought about not telling you and fixing it without you knowing. But I realized I couldn't do that to you. I'm glad I believed in your love for me and told you. You were so kind and loving. You didn't rebuke me and encouraged me. I felt so relieved. That's when my love became even deeper." "Honey, I love you so much." Kim gave her beloved husband another sensual kiss. "Kim, I'm really glad you feel that way. I want you to be able to feel safe and let me know anytime you feel like you've done something wrong. I promise you the same thing. I can't think of anything you could do that would make me love you less." "I love you too." Kim thought, it's now or never. "Marty, I have one more thing to confess. I was too scared to tell you before. Please promise me you won't get mad and yell at me." "Kim, I would never do that. What are you trying to tell me? It can't be that bad." "Well, do you remember when I went to that conference in Daytona a few weeks ago?" "Yeah, and I really missed you." On the last night of the conference, my colleagues and I sat in my room, drinking, talking, and just blowing off steam after sitting in boring lectures for 3 days. Since it was my room, I didn't worry about how much I drank. After a couple hours and a few more drinks, people started to slowly disperse until it was just me and this young guy from California. He was a typical surfer guy, roughly handsome, quite muscular, and he had a nice tan. Anyway, he pulled a joint out of his pocket and asked me if I wanted a drag. I hadn't smoked it since college, and the last one I'd tried wasn't nearly as strong. I didn't think there was anything special about it. We went out on the balcony to smoke. Again, I felt safe in my room, and since I was no longer in pain, I agreed to try it. It turned out to be considerably stronger than any I had ever smoked. Before I knew it, he was already kissing and nibbling my earlobes. You know how much that turns me on. Well, I'm afraid to say that shortly after that, he started kissing me all over. I swear I don't remember if he took my clothes off or if I did. It took Kim a second to suppress her tears. "Oh, Martin, I had sex with him that night. Well, I guess I did. I don't remember too much after he started touching me everywhere. I cried for an hour straight until I had to pack my things to leave in time. I managed to get myself cleaned up and looking presentable before I got home. Honey, I'm so sorry. I made a big mistake. I don't have a good excuse. It was my fault. There was absolutely nothing in the way you treated me that made me weak that night. I will absolutely never let that happen to me again. I will never touch hard alcohol or drugs again. I will never be in a hotel room with any man other than you again. Ever." She sobbed for a while. "Marty, I will get on my knees to beg you if I have to. Please forgive me for this one time I've lost my way." Crocodile tears flowed. She looked back to see Martin's reaction. Martin was stunned. His wife's confession of adultery was the last thing he would have thought of. He remained silent with a stone face. This was an excuse for Kim to move on to the next line on her prepared list. Actually, what I did hardly qualifies as cheating. I hardly knew the man. It was just sex once, and I barely even remember it. There is only one man I loved, and I still love him. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making amends to you for that indiscretion. I'm going to see a psychologist to find out what in my psychological makeup could have driven me to do such a terrible thing. While I think it was mostly due to alcohol, I need to make sure there isn't something else in my brain that I need to look at to make sure I never do anything like that again. Kim, I certainly agree that you need counseling. I hope you don't believe I need to walk with you. I really don't want to hear any more details about how you were so easily seduced. Marty, I don't think I was easy to seduce. It was more like a perfect storm of alcohol, marijuana, and ambiance. I felt safe in my room, but that only made me more susceptible to seduction. I can avoid a repeat of this circumstance. I know I can. Don't you see that? My mind is too clouded. Right now, I can't see anything clearly. That was Kim's key to getting to the next point. Martin, maybe I can clear this up for you, honey. Let's say the shoe was on the other foot. Suppose you came to me and admitted to dating another woman. Would you want me to give up on you that quickly? Yes, I would be hurt, but I truly believe I would agree to forgive you. Our marriage means too much to me to break it off over such a small setback. I suppose you think it's easy for me to say that since the shoe isn't on the other foot, but I can prove it. I'll let you go out and find yourself another woman to have sex with. I won't blame you for this. Once this is over, we'll be even. We'll forgive each other, and neither of us will ever lose our way again. Kim, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You want us to heal a marriage by breaking the same vow twice. That makes about as much sense as you trying to heal my broken leg by breaking your own. That would mean that neither of us would be healed, and we'd both have broken legs. Oops, that didn't work. Move on, Kim. Martin, there's someone else we should look into. Who, your new boyfriend? No, of course not. I don't even know his name or how to contact him, and I don't want to know. I'm talking about our future children. One of the reasons I married you, and I think you married me, is because we wanted to share parenting responsibilities with each other. What if the pills I've been taking for the last couple weeks didn't work and I got pregnant? Would you have walked away from me or Martin or Martina's future? Would you be happy if the first of our planned children were on the way right now? I want to be able to count on you being here to help raise our child. Are you saying you're pregnant? I don't think so, but I'd really like to be pregnant. Honey, we could start tonight. I'll throw away my pills and we could practice making babies. Kim, I don't know if I want to have a baby in this marriage right now. I certainly don't feel like practicing when I imagine someone else enjoying what used to be mine alone. In fact, you just added the possibility that you're carrying your lover's baby right now. Next idea, Kim, now. This will be yours and yours alone. I got my period after the conference, so I'm not carrying someone else's baby. Let's go back to my mistake. I wasn't vigilant and allowed a thief to come in and steal a small part of what is yours. I have already installed a better security and protection system in my brain. From now on, you will be the only one with access to my body. To show you how confident I am, I will sign a post-nuptial agreement stating that I agree to walk out of the marriage with nothing if I ever have sexual relations with another man. That includes custody of any future children. You know how much having children means to me. I can't give you any better proof than that. The tears flowed again. Tears were in all the stories. But I thought I'd already gotten your promise of exclusivity. You know, the one you made at our wedding. That was the vow you broke when you put yourself in a compromising situation with alcohol and marijuana. It was a vow you broke when you let him kiss and fondle you. It was a vow you broke when you realized you had no clothes on. It was a vow you broke that may have destroyed our marriage irrevocably. Please don't tell me you mean it. Our marriage can be fixed. It has to be. Why? Because you say so? Okay, Kim, time is of the essence. No, because the alternative would cost you too much. If you divorce me, I will fight you to the end. Not because I hate you, but because I know that staying married is the best thing for both of us, despite what you may be thinking at this moment. I would hate to do this, but I will go after every dollar, every painting, every cup, every pillowcase in the house if it slows things down. The more time you have to think about it, the more likely you'll realize what little importance it must have on our marriage. Her words didn't seem to have much effect. Time for a bombshell. Martin, I may even have to file a mental abuse and neglect claim. Do you want your good name tarnished? When people find out what the problem was, you'll be ridiculed for not forgiving me for a single mistake. Don't lose the rest of your treasure because one small piece was stolen. Martin, I'm trying to make you realize that not forgiving me isn't worth it. Put aside your wounded male pride for once. There will never be a second time. Forgive me this time, this one mistake of mine, and let's move on together. Our dreams of living together and playing with our children and grandchildren can still be realized if you would only forgive me. Her arsenal was empty. Kim, after listening to your concerns, I have to admit that this is not a decision to be made lightly or quickly. I need some time to think about it. I think it would be best if I leave for a while to be able to do this. He went upstairs to pack his things. When Martin came downstairs with his bag, Kim asked, Martin, how long will you be gone? I don't know yet. Will I see you and be able to talk to you during that time? Maybe if I need to do something for you or if you need something to keep the household running while I'm gone. Marty, I love you. Please don't forget that. I know you do. I love you too, Kim. That's why it's so damn hard. Kim was on her best behavior during the time out from the marriage that Martin took. She was determined to win him back. She even went back to church. For friends who asked about her husband's absence, Martin was on sabbatical. Kim stayed home at night, although Connie and others persuaded her to go out occasionally, even if there were no men present. Several weeks passed, but Kim did not give in to temptation. For all she knew, Martin could come home at any minute, so she stayed home. It was over a month before Martin called and asked Kim if he could come over that evening. He didn't even hint at what his decision was. She made wine and coffee in case he wanted one or the other. They sat at the kitchen table with coffee cups in their hands. Two pairs of sad eyes met. Kim began the dialogue. What have you decided, Marty? Are you going to divorce me? Marty, no, I'm not going to divorce you. Kim's eyes filled with tears of joy. Oh, Marty, I'm so happy. I promise you I'll be the best. Oh, wait. You might not be so happy when I tell you what I've decided. Kim's joy quickly evaporated. But you said we weren't going to get divorced. That's mostly true. Let me explain. I thought about giving you a second chance for a long time, but I couldn't get your betrayal out of my mind. I didn't know how to forgive without being able to forget. Every time I thought I was ready to forgive you, the memory of your confession of betrayal would come back and my forgiveness would be gone. I finally came to the conclusion that I couldn't continue our marriage if I couldn't punish you in some way. I thought I could put up with your infidelity if I could get some measure of revenge. The question was, what was the right punishment for the sin you had committed? I went to a friend for help. This friend advised me to go to a website called Best Weapon. There are stories there in the cheating section about reconciliation, as well as stories about burning the bitch. My friend advised me to ignore the reconciliation stories and focus on the so-called BTB stories. I have to admit, I was amazed at how much the methods of revenge against cheating wives varied greatly in type and brutality. It was very enlightening. After reading a bunch of BTB stories, I decided that even one betrayal of wedding vows is unforgivable. Wedding vows are supposed to be eternal. Thus, a broken wedding vow makes the marriage dissolved forever. When I remembered your threat about how you would fight divorce, the path became clear to me. Kim, I'm leaving you. I have a teaching position at another college and I'm leaving tonight. I won't be filing for divorce, and you can have whatever I leave behind. I only took half of our liquid assets. You may have a hard time keeping the house and paying the mortgage, unless your lover wants to help or you find a replacement for me soon. As you already know, you definitely have the looks to attract a lot of fuckboys. Postponing my departure will only hurt you and me more. Goodbye, Kim. I truly loved you and truly wish you all the best. Martin stood up and walked out the door. Kim ran to the door and saw a familiar car hitched to the back bumper of Martin's car. The sight of a passenger in Martin's car confirmed her assumption, which she had made as soon as he talked about looking for revenge stories on that popular website. There was Connie, kissing Martin as he got behind the wheel of his car. Kim walked up the driveway to the car but didn't bother to say anything to Connie. It didn't make any sense. Her look probably conveyed the message she wanted to send to the bitch. Connie smiled and loudly promised her to take good care of Martin. As the car touched down, Connie stuck her right hand out of the passenger side window and lowered it so Martin couldn't see. She extended the middle finger of her right hand, smiling broadly. Kim had to agree with her in one respect. She had screwed up, in a royal way. I hate to give a backstory, but I realize it's necessary to do so in order to tell about an event I want to share. What I look like or what Stephanie looks like is not important. Use your imagination to fill in the blanks with yourself and the love of your life. Stephanie and I found each other mutually attractive. What sparked between us wasn't based on looks. This story is about love. I'm married to Stephanie. Other people called her Steph, but I never did. I thought it was a beautiful name. She also called me Robert, although everyone else just called me Bob. Our affectionate names for each other were our formal names. That part will become important later. Mo hobby is astronomy. I like to look at the stars, as well as the planets in our solar system. I have an assortment of telescopes. Some people have a lot of guns. Some people have a lot of vinyl records. I have a lot of telescopes. I get new ones, just like anyone who likes the latest version of their favorite things and is eager to get the newest modification. If you had asked me a few months ago if something was wrong in our marriage, I would have told you, hell yes. Lately, something seemed off. Stephanie and I had been married for 3 years. We talked about the right time to have kids. We had a wonderful moment when we both decided it was time. For 2 months, that's all we talked about. And then, suddenly she didn't want to talk about it. Our sex life, which had been crazy with the excitement of having a baby, wasn't back to what it used to be. It became more like a ritual. It wasn't cold. The sex seemed mutually satisfying, but the passion wasn't there. And then 3 weeks ago, the sex just stopped. I assumed it was because of female issues I could never understand, or because she changed her mind. Both of my theories were wrong. I returned after work at my usual time. Nothing really told me what was to follow. There was no strange car in the driveway. There was a stranger's car parked on the street, but I didn't realize it until later. I walked in to see my wife and a man I had never seen on our couch before. Normally, I would call it a couch, but what I saw is the reason I describe it differently. They were sitting together holding hands. This was unusual. Stephanie usually let me know when someone stopped by to visit. I hoped it was some distant relative I'd never met. "Hello, dear. Will anyone be joining us for dinner tonight?" Stephanie said, "Robert, please have a seat. I have something to tell you." I sat down in the chair across from the couch. It was strange, but I didn't realize it wasn't the only strange thing I would have to face. No sooner had I done so than Stephanie spoke again. "Nigel and I have fallen for each other. Good." That removed all doubt. I was silent for a moment, thinking it over. While I did, she looked at the strange man. She looked at him the same way she had looked at me before. He was looking at her the same way. There was no doubt that she was telling the truth. I had only one question, so I asked it. "Who the hell is Nigel?" 3 said the man I had mistaken for Nigel. "That's me. I know this is awkward for both of you. I'm only here to ease the pain of this exposure. It's painful for her." Apparently, pain relief only meant pain relief for Stephanie. My pain hasn't lessened one bit, so it didn't really help. Stephanie spoke next. "I met Nigel at work. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it just did." I really thought I was being calm when I said, "How did it just happen?" Nigel pulled himself together and said loudly, "Don't raise your voice at her. She's an angel." Stephanie looked intently into his eyes and said, "Thank you, Pookie. I'm always here for you, Pookie-Hontas." Pookie? Pookie-Hontas? I was stunned. It was like a concussion. I used to play rugby, so I used that word from experience. What I felt was like a knee to the head. I was completely disoriented. My next words reflected this. I contained my emotions again and said in a calm tone, "Maybe there is a way we could work this out. I've read stories about women who can be in love with 2 people at the same time. There is this romantic story where a woman was in love with 2 men. We should read it together before we make any hasty decisions. Nigel got up from the couch. Stop yelling at her. Stop torturing this wonderful woman. Stephanie grabbed his arm and sat him back down on the couch. Thank you for protecting me, my knight. Then she kissed him. A light kiss on the lips that would have meant nothing before. Then she looked at me with a mixture of compassion and sadness. I can't love two men. It's not for me. I can only give my heart to one man at a time. I fell out of love with you the same way I fell in love with Nigel. Can't we talk about this? We could go to counseling. Nigel squeezed her hand as she replied, That would just prolong the pain. Robert, my heart knows what it wants. I still love you, and I always will. I just don't love you the way I used to anymore. Ending the relationship would be the easiest way for both of us. But we were only planning on having kids a few months ago. I don't understand. Stephanie looked at me with all the compassion in the world. That's why I had to do it. I want the children to be conceived in love. Nigel spoke again. They will be our favorite babies. Oh, Pookie, she replied. They rubbed their noses gently against each other. I really didn't think they could do anything more disgusting if they tried. I was about to speak when Stephanie looked at me and spoke first. Robert, I know this is hard, and thank you for being so supportive during what I know is a painful time for you. I'll be back later to get my stuff, and I really hope we can talk as friends. I was still wondering how my calm demeanor was somehow interpreted as supportive while they both got up and walked away. I certainly wasn't supportive of any of it. I assumed they said what they had rehearsed in advance. Nigel got into his car and she got into hers. Of course it was practical, as she had to take her own car. However, I don't think I could have stood to see them leave in the same car together. I always thought I had a very good memory. That night it was more like a curse. I replayed in my head everything Stephanie had said to me over the last 6 months. I'd never heard of Nigel. I had no idea who he was. She'd fallen in love with someone else and had an affair, and I'd never had a clue. How could I have missed it? Surely there were signs, as I mentioned earlier, that something was wrong. Now I could put all these things in context. She had fallen out of love with me, which explained her refusal to have sex. She had completely disconnected me from her bed for the past 3 weeks. I concluded that this was around the time she and Nigel realized their mutual desire. She said she could only have one love at a time. That's when she probably gave him her heart and body. I was still trying to make sense of it all when I got the call from the hospital. Stephanie had been in another car accident. Yeah, another one. Stephanie was always too impatient. A year ago, she rear-ended someone on her way home from work when traffic came to a sudden stop. Physically, she was fine, but emotionally, she was shaken. She lost consciousness when the airbag deployed. She wasn't even hospitalized for that. This time was more serious. E was taken to the hospital because she was unconscious when the EMTs found her. I was told that she ran a red light at full speed and then swerved to avoid an oncoming car. She ended up crashing into the side of a roadside cafe. Apparently, this information came from Nigel. He didn't call me and tell me, of course. I got that information from the staff. I was still mulling over the information coming down on me when Nigel came up to me. Yes, he was there too. He got there before I did, but I hadn't seen him until then. He didn't express mutual grief or offer what would have been an unwelcome hug. He didn't say anything like, "Hi," or "Let's talk." He just went over what was on his mind. Bob, I can't see her since I'm not family. You know she was leaving you for me, so I'd appreciate it if you'd let me in. You have to approve it. Technically, I'm not family, but I am her family. Technically. Given that approach, I gave my answer. That was easy. No, it wasn't. If I were you, I'd let her go. I'd want to move on. Let me comfort her. No. Are you really going to be an asshole at a time like this? Yes. With those words, I turned my back on him and headed for Stephanie's room. He was definitely right. I was being a jerk. I didn't feel guilty about it at all, not one bit. I barely had time to deal with the pain when Stephanie announced she was leaving. I didn't even have time to reach the anger stage. Seeing Nigel and listening to him, the grief was now replaced with anger. I couldn't lash out at my wife after she was in an accident, so being an asshole towards Nigel at the moment would be fine. I wanted answers, and I hoped I would get them. Until I did, Pookie wasn't going to get any closer. The fact that he was feeling pain was something of a balm to me at that moment. I was intercepted by Dr. Beller. He looked like a wise and experienced physician. His gray hair reassured me that he was a fount of knowledge. He told me that my wife probably had amnesia from what he could tell. Otherwise, she was physically fine, as she had been in a previous traffic accident. With her head, however, this time was different. Except for soap operas, I had no idea what it really meant. What I had learned from the TV was that I had to hit her in the head again to bring back her memories. I soon realized that soap operas should not be considered a source of medical knowledge. Dr. Beller was very much like a doctor when he explained this to me. She has retrograde amnesia. I didn't realize there were different types. There is also a version called anterograde amnesia. People who have it can't create new memories. Have you ever seen a movie called 50 First Dates? Yes, it's actually a criminally underrated Adam Sandler movie. All Adam Sandler movies are underrated. Well, let's all keep our opinions to ourselves. No point in pissing him off, after all. He was her doctor. So, if she doesn't have this kind of amnesia, what kind does my wife have? It's the kind everyone is most familiar with. She can't remember anything after a certain point. She'll create new memories anyway. Is it permanent? It rarely is. Usually the memories come back. It's extremely rare that they never resurface again. How long does it take for the memory to come back? It varies. It could happen this week. It could take a year. It could take even longer. So at any point, she could just suddenly remember everything? It's entirely possible. It could also be that she starts remembering certain things, but not all of them. She gradually remembers more and more things. So what you're saying is that you really have no idea what's going to happen. That's exactly what I'm saying. Besides, you gotta give Mama's Boy another chance. Adam Sandler is a comedic genius. I will. Apparently anyone can be a doctor these days. So much for believing in gray hair. They let me in to see my wife. She was awake and alert, and confused. Robert, what's the matter? The doctors tell me I've just been in an accident. I grabbed her outstretched hand and she squeezed mine. I squeezed back. What's the last thing you remember? I was coming home from the office. The car in front of me stopped, but I didn't hit the brakes in time. Her memories seemed to go back to an accident that had happened a year before this. It was before Nigel, as far as I could tell. I also wondered if her memories went back to another accident. Had she had some serious injury then that the doctors hadn't discovered? Or was it a coincidence? Those thoughts should have been discussed with the doctors another time. Or not. Right now, I was preoccupied with something else. Stephanie, you had another accident the day you left me. I left you? Why would I ever do that? You told me you were in love with Nigel. Nigel? Who the hell is Nigel? He's someone you know from work. I don't know anyone at work called Nigel. That was interesting. Either Nigel was new there, or she lied to me about how they met. Look, I don't want to worry you. We can talk about this another time. You can't just drop a bombshell like that and not talk about it. My first thought was, that's exactly what you did to me, you whore. There was no point in saying it or coming out to spite her for something she didn't remember. I took the long way out. Truthfully, with difficulty. I told her the whole story just as I had heard it from her. She interrupted me several times and was close to accusing me of lying. She seemed unable to comprehend anything I was saying. Once again, this is exactly how I felt when she and Nigel confessed their mutual love to me earlier that day. She was full of questions that I couldn't help but answer, such as, did you cheat on me? No, Stephanie, I never did and I never will. Did you beat me up or something? Same answer as last time. Then why would I do it for no reason? I kissed her hand. Stephanie, just come to your senses. We have time to talk about this. I'm glad you're okay. Stephanie was kept in the hospital for a few days while the doctors ran tests. I was there every day after work. So was Nigel. Every time I came in, he'd say something like, "Bob, can we talk?" "No." "Bob, you know that." "No." Eventually, Stephanie was allowed to go home. We were both informed of what to expect. Stephanie was fine, mentally and physically. Her memories would likely return, perhaps slowly, perhaps all at once. I'd heard that before. She had heard it before. In that moment, Stephanie just wanted to go home. I wanted that too. So we nodded and agreed and signed all the forms without reading them, just to get the hell out of there. While we were nodding and signing, Dr. Beller mentioned that she could go to work, but her lack of memory might make it difficult for her to perform her duties. He suggested that she might want to find another job in a similar field. I simply said, "Thank you, Dr. Beller, for everything you've done. We want to go home now." 5 minutes later, we did. That night we slept cozily in each other's arms. I didn't want to let her go. It was like having a piece ripped out of me that was suddenly restored. I never wanted to lose it again. I slept more soundly since this whole thing started. When I woke up, we were still entwined. Although I breathed easier now that my beloved was safe under our roof again, that didn't mean I felt completely at peace. From what Dr. Beller had said, it sounded like this situation could change at any time. I wasn't sure how big the window was in which I had to find a permanent solution, but I had a second chance now, and I wasn't going to just waste it doing nothing while the clock ticked. Of course, there were deep philosophical questions to consider. For example, if Stephanie had been able to fall out of love with me once so quickly, did I really want her back? Things like, should I look a gift horse in the teeth? I'd never really gotten into philosophy, so I ignored those thoughts and focused on the task in front of me. I needed to get Nigel off the stage before I could think of anything else. This problem was difficult enough. Stephanie wouldn't think of quitting his job. She loved her job. She was good at it. She called her boss and explained her memory situation. Her boss was sympathetic and welcomed her back. She told her that she would do well. I was kind of supportive of her return, but I still didn't know anything about Nigel. A lot of cheating starts at work. From the little I knew, it was the same situation here. It would definitely be a problem if he was actually someone she worked with. If Nigel was a coworker of hers, she would run into him again. If that was the case, there was a possibility that he would get into her heart again. She went back to work despite my excuses. She seemed to be honest with me about how they met. Nigel really was a coworker. Stephanie told me that she received a nice welcome. Everyone seemed to want to do what they could to help her. They were all informed about her memory loss. Only one person made her feel uncomfortable: Nigel. His way of welcoming her back was different. He kept wanting to talk to her alone and kept violating her physical boundaries, which was uncomfortable from a coworker, let alone a stranger. She received many hugs, but Nigel was the only one sniffing her hair. Stephanie told me that she drew boundaries very quickly. He didn't seem to heed the warning. He kept wanting to take her hand or hug her. All of this only made Stephanie angrier. The company she worked for had no policy of no relationships between coworkers. Fortunately for me, it did have a strict sexual harassment policy. I realize I said, lucky for me. I still wasn't ready to think, lucky for us. Not yet. Nigel was called into an HR meeting, given the usual company lecture on the policy, and told he needed to cease and desist. He was also reprimanded by his supervisor and told he needed to stop hitting on Stephanie. Nigel didn't stop. The first thing he did after being warned was to stand in front of Stephanie in front of multiple witnesses. Instead of speaking, he grabbed her and started kissing her. I assumed he expected muscle memory or something to lead to her kissing him back, rather than the ensuing slap and kick to the groin. Nigel was fired for good reason. That didn't stop him from trying to see her. He showed up in the parking lot at work. He showed up if she went out to lunch. It got so bad that she got a restraining order against him. That did a lot to ease my anxiety that the affair might resume. It's hard to have sex from 500 feet away. I did enjoy seeing my wife's lover suffer. I also enjoyed rekindling the relationship with my wife that I thought we had always had. Stephanie was back for a while, but I knew that could change if the memories came back to her. Even if that wasn't the case, could something in her nature make her suddenly feel the same way about another man? One night I was looking at the stars on my balcony through one of my old telescopes. I did this from time to time because I liked to think of myself as Galileo and wanted to see if I could see what he saw. I couldn't draw the conclusions he did, but I wanted to be able to. When I was frustrated, I pointed the telescope at the neighborhood, as I often did. I'll be damned if I didn't see Nigel in the bushes. Stephanie came out on the balcony and asked what I was looking at. I just told her to look through the telescope. Wow, this is some serious shit. Should I call the police? Oh no! He wants to see something. Let's give him something to see. What do you mean? I want him to see me making love to you. I want him to know that you're mine. He'll see you and me naked. You told me he's already seen you naked. No, you're the only one who's ever seen me naked. I don't think he's ever seen me naked. Then it's time for him to see it. I want him to see something he can never compete with. Let's let him see something from me that he will never get or see again. Let's show him two people in a love that will never be equaled. Let's talk about the pressure. This should have been hard for me. It wasn't. Her enthusiasm was contagious. Heck, it was hot. It had been years since our foreplay had been this intense. We kissed, stroked each other affectionately, then kissed again and again. At this point, I had no idea if Nigel was still looking at us or not. I hoped he was. I didn't really care anymore. We were both in the present moment, enjoying each other's touches and tastes in a way we hadn't enjoyed in years. Stephanie doesn't make any noise when we have sex. She just makes quiet noises. If she ever speaks during sex, it's usually quiet, one-word statements like, yes. I talk more than she does. I can say up to 3 words. You're beautiful, or Stephanie, my Stephanie. Tonight we're putting on a show. Nigel shouted, "No, we have to have our children! Our children!" Apparently this was the straw that broke Nigel the camel's back. He chose that moment to burst out of hiding. "Pocahontas, please stop! I love you!" At that moment we were no longer paying attention. At that moment, I wanted nothing more than to have an orgasm. From the look on her face, she wanted the same thing. I can always tell when she's in the moment. She never looks at me. Her eyes look anywhere but at me. Nigel, realizing that his words were barely audible, decided to make a non-verbal statement with an action. This statement was made by breaking our glass door. He really could have just opened the door. It was unlocked. I assumed he wanted, without wasting time, to find out. Despite what we see in the movies, it seems throwing your body full force into a window pane doesn't leave you unnoticed. Judging by the screams, it seems to hurt as well. Nigel was a hell of a mess. He was halfway in and halfway out, stuck in the frame and struggling to free himself from the glass. I grabbed his arm and dragged him inside. He screamed again. His clothes were torn and his exposed flesh showed lacerations everywhere. Instead of thanking me, he shouted, "Get your hands off me!" I didn't even touch him after pulling him down as he lay prostrate on the floor. He really seemed indifferent to the fact that he was bleeding and stained. The area was tiled, but it would still have to be cleaned up. I called 911. At the time, I thought it was a medical emergency. Nigel looked like he had lost the battle to the chainsaw. However, after talking to the 911 operator, I realized I was also reporting a crime. I lived in a town where reporting a crime could result in the person reporting the crime being arrested or shot. Let's just call that city Baltimore. It was one of those situations where I could have been handcuffed and spent the night in a cell because the police just arrested everyone at the scene and let the court system handle the incident. 2 police officers arrived. One was a rather large and imposing fellow. The other was a smaller woman, and I got the feeling that you didn't want to mess with her. While Nigel and I were told to lie down and keep our heads down, Nigel tipped the scales in my favor again. While we were both being handcuffed, he shouted to Stephanie, "Pookie Hontus, I'm coming back to rescue you." The larger police officer was Officer Whitecloud. That was all he and his partner needed to hear. I really hoped that someday he would be promoted and eventually become Chief Whitecloud. When the dust settled, the court decided that Nigel had violated the restraining order. He was also guilty of breaking and entering. Nigel was going to disappear from our lives for a while. It didn't hurt when Officer Whitecloud took the stand where he mentioned Pookie Hontas in front of the most liberal judge that could have presided over the case. Did I mention that the judge was also a woman who hated stalking? At that moment, I wanted to kiss her, but I didn't want to test fate. Nigel went to prison. Oh, not forever. He got a sentence of 2 years and served 3 months. It was still an unexpectedly harsh sentence. He was now a criminal. That would put an end to his future. It looked like he finally got the message because there was no more communication from Pookie. That was one problem that could be done away with. But there was still a time bomb bringing back her memories. I selfishly didn't want that to happen. Considering how she was thinking about Nigel now, I don't think it would be good for her either. Nevertheless, we had to move on, ready for it. I had no doubt that if it ever happened, we would be together. I also had no doubt that it would be a complication we didn't need. That's where my story ends. In my opinion, they live happily ever after. This story is best appreciated as a humorous story, which it should be. However, I realize that some readers will find this story unfinished because the reasons for this novel were never explained. I didn't explain it because I don't know the reasons. I used a collection of real-life experiences to describe Stephanie's thoughts when she decided to leave him. I know this, that just from experience in my own life, as well as talking to women and men, the "I just fell in love with him" explanation has happened more than once. If anyone finds this story incomplete, I already know in my mind what will happen if she regains her memories. It will still be a happy ending that will involve therapy, counseling, and arguments. Damn, baby, that was so good! Twice last night and again this morning. I think you've outdone yourself. When was the last time we slept 3 times in 12 hours? I grinned. Since the babies were born. This empty nest thing has its advantages. Amy snuggled up to me and I hugged my wife of 20 years. I still miss the girls, but it feels really good to be here with you. The last 22 years flashed through my mind. Dating, and finally marrying Amy. Then came the girls a year apart as we became a family. The girls went from dolls to bikes, then to soccer and boyfriends, then to driver's licenses and graduation. Suddenly, they were hundreds of miles away in college, and Amy and I were an empty family. I kissed the top of her head. Baby, the last 20 years have flown by like a blur. I want us to take advantage of this time and be a couple again like we were 2 decades ago. Amy giggled. Well, we're not newlyweds, but there are plenty of things we can do to keep the fire burning. I felt blissfully satisfied as I gently stroked her hand. I loved the feel of her soft skin, and she purred in appreciation. I think I was about to fall asleep when Amy lifted her head and kissed me on the lips. Tim, making love to you is one of my favorite joys in life, and I know you feel the same way. We're good together, and I never want that to change. I sleepily mumbled back, You make me very happy. I'm lucky to have you. She leaned over and kissed me again. What we have together is wonderful, and I want us to always be together. I want you to help me spoil our grandchildren when they come along and be there for me when we get old. Too sleepy to answer, I just nodded and pulled her against me. She kissed me lightly on the lips, and I felt her hand move lower. But before the grandchildren take over all of our lives, I want to have a new adventure. I want some more thrills before we become grandparents and sink into old age. Slowly, her words made their way into my consciousness and pulled me out of the dim fog of impending slumber. I stirred and raised one eyebrow in unasked question. Kid, I know it's very selfish, but I want to have one more little adventure before I get too old to explore new things. As my thoughts floated back to the surface of consciousness, a distant alarm rang. What had she said? Something about the last adventure? But the way she said it, why did it bother me? I love adventure, but what kind of adventure was she planning for us? I opened my eyes. I saw her beautiful face, framed by a wild mop of blonde hair. Her eyes were filled with concern as she studied me. I started stroking her hand again. An adventure, What kind of adventure did you have planned for us? Well, she leaned in and kissed me again. Like I said, it's a little selfish. The alarm in my head was now loud and clear. So this adventure is for you and not for us? She wrinkled her nose slightly and replied, Well, yes, but I think you can have an adventure separate from mine, too. That fucking alarm clock, alerting me, was pumping my body with adrenaline. I braced myself against the headboard of the bed, forcing Amy to move away from me. Fully focused, I met my gaze with Amy's. Stop beating around the bush. Tell me what you mean by adventure. Amy pulled away slightly. It's okay. I didn't mean to upset you. I'm not upset. Yet. Okay. I told you that Dan from sales was bragging about the sailboat he and his brother Rob bought. Last month, Susan, my cubicle neighbor, went sailing with Dan and Rob for the weekend. She said it was great and that she wanted to go again. I said it was fun and she must have told Dan because he asked us both to go swimming next weekend. I stared at my wife. So some guy I've never met asked my wife to go away with him for the weekend. Oh, and with Labor Day on Monday, it's going to be a 3-day weekend. I said that's selfish. I have pictures of the boat if you want to see. She's very pretty and Susan said she had a great time sailing around the lake. Amy, Susan is single and you are married. Don't you see the problem with that? I know, baby. She reached out to touch my face and I jerked my head away. But it's just one weekend, just one last adventure. I jumped up from the bed. No way in hell, forget it! I will not let you play the naughty student and spend the weekend on a sailboat having fun with your co-worker. I didn't say anything about sleeping with him. Come on, what the hell makes you think these guys would invite 2 girls to spend the weekend on their boat? Did Susan tell you what she did with them when she left? LOL. Amy looked down at the bed. Yes, she had sex with them, but that doesn't mean I should have. Oh, and her story about floating around lying on the deck and then sleeping with her brothers has nothing to do with you wanting to be there with her? Tim, it's just one weekend. You can spend this weekend however you want, and then we'll just put it behind us and forget about it. Ignoring the fact that you've already got an adventure planned, and I'll only have a few days to try and figure it out, I'm not interested in having a fucking adventure with anyone but you. You could ask me to rent a boat, and we could have our own adventure on the lake, but it's not about the boat, is it? The real adventure is spending the weekend in the company of 2 young studs. Babe, I'm sorry. I think I was just caught up in the excitement of Susan's story. It sounded like such a grand adventure. I'm sorry. I'll tell them I'm not going. Until 20 minutes ago, I was as happy as I've ever been in my life. When I held you in my arms, I was content, confident in our love and your commitment to our marriage. Now I know it was just a fantasy. I deluded myself into believing that you were as content, as devoted as I was, but I was wrong. No, it's not a fantasy. I really love you and always will. Please, baby, I'm so stupid. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. Hell, I probably wasn't thinking at all. Please ignore everything I said. Please, baby. She said the last words to my back as I walked into our bathroom. I closed and locked the door. Taking a shower, I washed off the remnants of our lovemaking. My mind was still numb from the shock of my wife's suggestion. How could she believe I would agree to such a betrayal? When I came out, Amy was lying face down on the bed, sobbing loudly. She looked up at me, her beautiful face now flooded with tears. I sat down on the bed and she pulled herself up and pressed herself against me. I put my arms around her and stroked her until her sobs subsided. Amy, for 22 years, you made me believe in us, in our relationship. I thought we wanted the same things, that we had the same desires. I never once doubted you, until today. Oh my God, Tim, I'm so sorry. While you were in the shower, I was thinking about what I said, about what I had planned. I asked myself how I would feel if this was your plan. If you had said that 2 girls had invited you to go swimming this weekend, I almost threw up. It's so selfish, like I'm an immature teenager instead of a wife and mother. I'm so ashamed of myself and I feel so stupid. So what do we do now? Where do we go from here? How can I trust you knowing that you were totally willing to sleep with 2 other men? What does that say about our future together? Amy tried to hold back her sobs. I've ruined everything. Now I can't even imagine how I could have thought that such an idea could be acceptable to any husband. Baby, I guess I was just taking you for granted. You've always been so reliable to me, and I think I just gave in to a silly, selfish whim. I completely neglected and disrespected you. I thought it would be fun, so I just neglected everything else, and that's so unlike me. This is all so unlike you, at least the you I've known and loved for the past 22 years. Baby, please tell me how I can make this right. I know it's all my fault, but what can I say or do to get you to give me a chance to make things right? I don't know. Our marriage is seriously damaged. Everything I thought was true is now untrue. I'm just devastated. You say you just took me for granted. Is that my fault? Was I too loyal to you? Do you find me boring now? Oh my God, what have I done? No, it was all me. It was my brain noise, my selfish, childish indulgence. Maybe, just maybe your devotion was so strong that it allowed me to convince myself that it was okay to take your love for granted. But baby, that was so wrong. I should have treasured your devotion, not tried to take advantage of it. I just pray that you'll let me try to prove that I realize the error of my ways and give me a chance to save our marriage. I don't know if her pleas convinced me or if I was just so desperate to believe that she was still the woman I'd loved for 22 years, but I nodded. Amy threw herself into my arms, sobbing and kissing me. Call Susan and tell her to tell the boys you're not going. And Amy, promise me you'll stay away from Dan at work. Either you or Susan or both of you let him know that it's okay to invite you to spend the weekend with him. You need to let everyone know that you would never do that. You know, maybe I should think about going to work for your sister at her bakery. We don't need the extra money and she could use the help. It would be the responsible thing to do. You know, an adult, mature, unselfish, responsible thing to do, Amy said, smiling. Epilogue. I thought about what Amy had done for quite a while. I couldn't bring myself to believe that our 22 years together should be ruined because of one selfish plan that she ultimately discarded. I was still very hurt by her disrespect, but forced myself to give her a chance to make amends. It took some time, but gradually the doubts generated by Amy faded away. She loved working at the bakery until she retired to spend more time with her grandchildren. I still have a year or 2 to go before I join her in retirement. Once I retire, Amy says she's ready for a new adventure, with me and no one else.